Most Valuable Promotions is a promotion owned and co-owned by Jake Paul and his advisor. Established in 2021, it ended up being a boxing promotion, holding headlining boxing fights such as the Money Grabber fight and Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson, the actual fights between Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano during their last two fights of their epic trilogy, and the infamous Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua. Now Jake Paul and MVP Promotions will be attempting to challenge the UFC by holding its first ever MMA card, and it is going to be held on May 16th in the Intuit Dome in California, which in my mind is one of the best combat sports arenas in the USA right now. With 10 fights filled with former UFC champions, UFC rejects, and some of the best fighters outside of the UFC currently. But how good truly is this card? It is a supposed triple headliner, with the main event being former UFC champion Ronda Rousey versus Gina Carano. The co-main event is former UFC heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou versus Felipe Lins, and a feature bout between two fan favorites in Mike Perry and Nate Diaz. All of them are 5-round MMA fights, and today I'm going to be going into every single fight on this card and give my most honest assessment and opinion on every fight, giving them a grade between F and A on importance, entertainment, skill level, and overall matchmaking compared to the level of some UFC fighters, while giving my predictions on this card as well. And no, this card is not as good as the White House card. It isn't even remotely close. The White House card clears it in every single way. So let's get right into the predictions and the breakdowns of the card. Opening up the card at 170 pounds, we have Chris Avilia. He is 8-9 in MMA with 5 KOs, 2 submissions, and 1 decision win. He is 33 years old, come by way of Stockton, California. He'll be facing Brandon Jenkins. He is 16-11 with 11 KOs, 3 submissions, 2 decision wins. He is 34 years old, born in Des Moines, Iowa. Avilia was 0-2 in the UFC and lost to Artem Lobov in 2016. He left MMA in the summer of 2021 on a 2-fight win streak and ended up going to boxing, where he actually had quite a bit of success. He won his first 6 fights against the likes of Anthony Taylor, Jeremy Stevens, and Anthony Pettis before losing his last 2 fights in boxing to Benson Henderson and Ariel Perez. But here's the thing, in boxing and MMA, his record is 14-11 overall. And in those combined disciplines, 11 of those losses, he has never been knocked out and has never been submitted. He is a tough fighter. And Jenkins was also 0-2 in the UFC with his losses to Rong Zhu and Drakkar Klose. Since leaving the UFC, he has done MMA, karate, boxing, bare-knuckle MMA, and he has had mixed results in those promotions. Both of these fighters are mainly strikers, so that'll make this fight at least somewhat fun. So they got a decent grade on the entertainment, but in the matchmaking, importance, and skill levels, they are not there. These guys are not UFC level, and if I saw this on a UFC card, it would genuinely concern me. This fight is a D+ level fight compared to UFC standards. In my early lean pick-wise, I guess just give me Chris Avilia, the Nate Diaz training partner, to win this fight by decision, but this fight is nowhere close to UFC level. The second fight on the card is a catchweight women's fight at 130 pounds between the younger sister of Alex Poatan Peiera, Aline Peiera. She is 2-2 with 2 decision wins, 35 years old, come by way of Sao Paulo, Brazil. She will be facing Jade Masson-Wong. She is 3-2 in MMA with 1 knockout and 2 decision wins. She is 33 years old, come by way of Quebec, Canada. Aline Peiera is a good striker with a nice kickboxing/karate style on the feet with power in her hands. She has fought in kickboxing, karate, and MMA throughout her combat sporting career, and she has faced good competitions on the regional scenes in MMA. She is coming off 3 karate combat wins and a win in MMA about 6 months ago. Where Masson-Wong is mainly a boxer now after leaving MMA in 2020 after losses to Mandy Bohm and Jamie Lynn Horth. Both of those, she ended up getting finished in the 3rd round. She went to boxing, and from 2021 to 2026, she went 3-2 in bare knuckle boxing and 2-1 in normal boxing. This, in my mind, is a better fight. Both of these fighters have faced good level of competition on the regional scenes and have done pretty good for themselves in their respected striking disciplines. So the matchmaking and entertainment should be decently high on this fight, and the importance is bigger than the last fight because it's Poatan's sister fighting. So in my mind, I'm going to give this fight a grade of a C minus, and if I saw it on a UFC card, I would at least be intrigued and looking forward to the fight, even if they're not UFC level, which right now I do not think either of these women are. So this brings me a little bit more intrigue, and it gets it to a C minus. My prediction on this fight will be Aline Peiera to win this fight by second round knockout in a gritty stand-up battle. Now at 145 pounds, a fight between Arman Tsarukyan's protege, David Magoyan. He is 8-1 with 5 knockouts, 1 submission, and 2 decision wins. He is 22 years old, come by way of Armenia. He will be facing Albert Moreas. He is 19-10-1 with 9 knockouts, 6 submissions, and 4 decision wins. He is 34 years old, come by way of Carson, California. Magoyan's only loss in MMA was to Sean O'Malley's training partner Tommy Gunn McMillan in a banger of a Dana White Contender Series fight last year, where Magoyan almost knocked him out in the first round. He is a powerful striker early in the boxing with fast kicks and a solid all-around grappling game. And Albert Moreas is a solid striker with decent kickboxing, some power in his hands, and a decent overall grappling game as well. He's just a solid, well-balanced fighter. Moreas was 1-4-1 in the UFC from late 2016 to early 2018. Now he's 7-1 in his last 8 MMA fights from 2022 to now. Magoyan, I think, is actually a pretty solid prospect in MMA right now, and I think he will be in the UFC someday. And Moreas is on a decent win streak right now, so this might be the best fight so far on the entire card. Entertainment-wise, this should be good. Matchmaking is solid, and it has some importance with the best MMA fighters on this card so far. I'm going to give it a C. If it was the opening fight for a UFC card, I wouldn't mind it. It's a solid all-around fight, but I think David Magoyan will win this fight by TKO in the first 2 rounds. But he might have some trouble with the MMA vet, especially if it goes later in this fight. I'm going to give this fight a C grade. Next up at 170 pounds, we have Namo Fazil. He is 9-1 with 4 knockouts, 3 submissions, and 2 decision wins. He is 29 years old, come by way of Kurdistan. He will be facing Jake Babian. He is 6-1 with 4 knockouts, 1 submission, and 1 decision win. He is coming by way of California. Both of these fighters are well-rounded in their prime ages for MMA, on a 6-fight win streak, both of them. Babian is more of a striker, and Fazil is the better grappler in this fight on paper. This is a very, very close fight. Matchmaking is a plus. Namo Fazil has some hype on him. He has faced better competition in MMA, and he has a good mix of TKOs and submissions. And Babian has finished 4 of his 6 wins in the first minute of the fight. This is great matchmaking. This should be very entertaining, and whoever wins this should be on the UFC's radar for a future. So overall, I'm going to give this grade a C+. I think it would be a very fun fight, and if it was on the prelims for a UFC card or even on a Dana White Contender Series card, I would be interested in this fight. The only thing holding this back from it being a B- is the experience level for both of them, and especially Babian. And I think this should be a very entertaining fight, though. Give me Namo Fazil to win this fight by second or third round submission. Now coming up at 170 pounds, we have former PFL and Bellator vet Jason Jackson. He is 19-6 with 6 KOs, 4 submissions, and 9 decision wins. He is 35 years old, born in Kingston, Jamaica. He will be facing Jeff Chreighton. He is 12-2-1 with 1 knockout, 5 submissions, and 6 decision wins. He is 30 years old, come by way of Orange County, California. Jeff Chreighton is a short notice replacement here, and he was on The Ultimate Fighter Season 33, and he was a semi-finalist, losing to the runner-up of that season. He is a dominant wrestler with good takedowns and controls, and also a dangerous submission game. On the feet, he has some solid kickboxing, but it's nothing too crazy. And Jason Jackson is a powerful boxer with technical combinations, solid kicks, and good grappling defense with an okay offensive game as well. He is the only one to beat Yaroslav Amosov before he got into the UFC. So this is good matchmaking. I feel like Jackson is a guy that could fit in the UFC roster right now amongst the unranked guys at 170 pounds. And Chreighton really is only 2 to 3 wins away from getting another shot into the UFC. So skill level wise and matchmaking, it's there. And entertainment wise, it's a clash of styles, so we'll see how it goes. But I'm going to go with a grade of a C+ here, because I think there's a decent chance that this turns into a grappling heavy fight with not a whole lot of excitement and damage put out. But I think this is a good fight overall. Skill level wise, it's there. If I saw this on the prelims of a fight night, I would be very interested in seeing who would win this. My pick for this fight is going to be Jason Jackson to defend takedowns and outstrike Chreighton for at least 2 of the rounds here and getting Jason Jackson a 29-28 decision win. Now coming up at 125 pounds, in my mind, a top 5 current flyweight in the world in Muhammad Mokeav. He is 15-0 with 2 knockouts, 7 submissions, and 6 decision wins. He is 25 years old, born in Dagestan, Russia. He will be facing 1 championship veteran, Adriano Moreas. He is 21-6 with 4 knockouts, 11 submissions, and 6 decision wins. He is 37 years old, come by way of Federal District, Brazil. Mokeav has a dominant wrestling base with strong takedowns, good in the clinch, strong submissions, and a fast kickboxing style on the feet as well. He was 23-0 in amateur MMA and was known as one of the most hyped-up prodigies in the sport. He has wins over Tim Elliott, Charles Johnson, and Manel Kape, and he infamously was let go from the UFC in July of 2024 because of his attitude towards matchmakers and other workers employed by the UFC. He has gone 3-0 in MMA since being released, and he has done good for himself. Hopefully we can see him back in the UFC someday. And Moreas is a big flyweight with a decent overall MMA game, lethal jiu-jitsu skills, and a decent striking game as well with some power in his hands. He had a big trilogy with Demetrius Johnson and 1 championship where he did win the first fight by knockout. He was known as one of the best flyweight fighters in 1 championship. So grade-wise on this fight, we're getting somewhere now. I'm going to give this a B overall grade. Matchmaking is decent, skill level is good, and it should be entertaining with actual importance behind it. This is Mokeav's best opponent since leaving the UFC, and I feel like he can do whatever he wants in this fight. Morales has good BJJ skills, and the wrestling of Mokeav, in my mind, is top 5 in the world at 125 pounds, and his striking is also top 10 in my mind in the world at 125 pounds with his developing kickboxing game. So Moreas could prolong this fight a little bit. We might get some fun scrambles and some fun transitions on the ground, but give me Muhammad Mokeav to win this fight by a second round finish where he shows that he is just the better fighter everywhere. I'm leaning towards a submission win, but Moreas is hard to finish. But Mokeav is a top 5 flyweight in the world right now. I believe so. And I think he should do whatever he wants to get the win here, and I hope to see him back in the UFC someday. Now coming up at heavyweight, we have former UFC champion Junior Dos Santos. He is 21-10 with 13 KOs, 3 submissions, and 5 decision wins. He is 42 years old, come by way of Santa Catarina, Brazil. He will be facing Robelis Despaigne. He is 5-2 with 5 KO wins, and he is 37 years old, come by way of Cuba. Despaigne is a powerful karate-esque striker with spurts of powerful punches and dangerous high kicks as well. On the ground, he absolutely sucks ass, and he went 1-2 in the UFC with a win over Josh Parisian in his debut and losses to Waldo Cortez Acosta, which isn't bad at all, and then he lost to Austin Lane. Given Austin Lane his 1 win in the UFC, and since then he has gone 7-0 in karate combat. And Junior Dos Santos is a good striker with good boxing, fast kicks, and a much superior grappling game as well in my mind in this fight. He has wins over Stipe Miocic, Cain Velasquez, Mauricio Verdum, Frank Mir, Mirko Cro Cop, and many more UFC mainstays and legends. The grading for this fight is kind of straightforward. Matchmaking is okay, skill level is okay, entertainment, it should be decently entertaining, but the importance is not there whatsoever. I'm giving this fight a C grade. Both of these fighters right now are not UFC level in my mind, but C grade is fitting because it just isn't important. It's kind of a pointless matchmaking here, but it should be somewhat fun. My pick is not going to be confident at all. I think Robelis Despaigne could just go out there and bull rush and smoke the 42-year-old in JDS in round 1. But if Junior Dos Santos does wrestle, Despaigne absolutely sucks ass at wrestling, and I think he could do that, honestly. But my early lean is going to be Robelis Despaigne to find the power shot because the 42-year-old Junior Dos Santos does not have as fast a footwork as he used to have. And I think Robelis Despaigne is just going to go out there, get a round 1 knockout, and probably go back to karate combat and never fight in MMA again.
I just busted right inside him, and he can't extend on me anymore, and he seems a little overwhelmed by my girth and tonnage, right?
Now coming up at 155 pounds, we have the KSW lightweight champion, Saladin Parnasse. He is 22-2 with 7 KOs, 7 submissions, and 8 decision wins. He is 28 years old, come by way of France. He will be facing Kenneth Kross. He is 17-4 with 6 KOs, 7 submissions, and 4 decision wins. He is 31 years old, come by way of Hastings, Michigan. Parnasse is one of the best fighters at 155 pounds to not sign to the UFC yet. He is 9-1 in MMA in his last 10 fights, and 9 of those fights were title fights in the very good Polish MMA promotion KSW, who has produced a lot of UFC fighters on the roster right now. He is a well-balanced, good striker with powerful hands, with good kicks and a solid overall grappling game with some sneaky choke submissions. He has wins over current UFC fighters like Morgan Charrier, Robert Ruchala, and William Gomez in Gomez's pro MMA debut. And Kross won on the Dana White Contender Series in 2020 by decision, and he wasn't signed to the company. Since then, he has gone 6-1 with 3 finishes outside of the UFC, and he is a good striker with fast hands, decent power, and solid wrestling as well with some submission threats. This fight has good matchmaking, good skill level, and it should be a fun fight. I'm going to give it a B-, and I'm going to pick Saladin Parnasse to win this fight by a club and sub, knocking him down and submitting him in round 2. Definitely a top 3 fight on the card in my opinion, or a top 5 card at least. It has a lot of importance right now in terms of skill level, and they're both in their prime, so both of these fighters could make a run for the UFC easily at some point. And one last thing I'll say about this, for people in the USA, they have not watched a lot of KSW, Octagon, or other promotions in Europe, and this is a good way to introduce fans to Saladin Parnasse, who is one of the best fighters outside of the UFC right now, and he should be signed to the company within the next 2 years. Now coming up at 170 pounds, we have part 1 of the triple headliner here. First, we have the infamous Nate Diaz. He is 21-13 with 4 KOs, 13 submissions, and 4 decision wins. He is 41 years old, come by way of Stockton, California, and he will be facing the Nigerian Nightmare Platinum Mike Perry. He is 14-8 with 11 KOs and 3 decision wins. He is 34 years old, come by way of Orlando, Florida. Nate Diaz is truly a 101 fighter. He went 16-11 in the UFC, but he had wins over Donald Cerrone, Takanori Gomi, Anthony Pettis, and famously, his 2 fights with Conor McGregor, which they split wins with each other and ultimately changed the sport of MMA with their rivalry. Diaz is a great Brazilian jiu-jitsu grappler, a tough, scrappy boxer on the feet. He is extremely tough, and he has cardio for 10 rounds, let alone a 5-round fight. Mike Perry is another one-of-one fighter, and he went 7-8 in the UFC, going 1-4 in his final 5 fights. He was known for his knockout power and his fast, tough boxing, but he got cut from the UFC and ultimately became the Conor McGregor of bare-knuckle boxing and the promotion BKFC. He went 6-0 in bare-knuckle boxing, beating the likes of Michael Venom Page, Luke Rockhold, and Eddie Alvarez. Now, in my mind, this is the fight that I'm looking forward to the most by far on this whole card. Matchmaking's great, style's great, and it's just a good fight. Nate Diaz and Mike Perry, the fight itself and the characters between these two, it's a B+ fight, and if I saw it on a numbered events main card, I would be absolutely pumped. The skill level of these two, they would not be top 30 or top 40 in the UFC right now at 170 pounds, but they are great personalities, and they'll always be entertaining in my mind. For my pick, I'm going to pick Mike Perry winning the first round, maybe 2 rounds, and then Nate Diaz, he'll just do Nate Diaz things. He'll sting up Mike Perry later in the fight and submit him, probably in the 4th or 5th round. So my pick is going to be Nate Diaz to win by submission in round 4. And this is the fight that I'm looking forward to by far the most on this card. Now for the co-main event at heavyweight, we have former UFC heavyweight champion Francis the Predator Ngannou. He is 18-3 with 12 KOs, 5 submissions, and 1 decision win. He is 39 years old, born in the country of Cameroon. He will be facing Felipe Lins. He is 18-5 with 9 KOs, 4 submissions, and 5 decision wins. He is 40 years old, coming by way of Brazil. Felipe Lins was 4-2 in the UFC's light heavyweight and heavyweight division from 2020 to 2024, and he was cut while being on a 4-fight winning streak where he won 3 of those fights by decision and 1 by first-round knockout. He wasn't bad in the UFC, but if you put him in the company right now, in my mind, in heavyweight or light heavyweight, he would beat a few of the lower-level guys in the UFC. He famously won the PFL's heavyweight tournament in 2018, winning the $1 million prize, which is probably the biggest accomplishment in his MMA career. He is a solid striker with decent wrestling, and he is a decent all-around fighter whenever it comes to UFC standards. Ngannou had a massive fallout with the UFC in 2022, which was the talk of MMA. He was 12-2 in the UFC, knocking out the likes of Stipe Miocic, Andrei Arlovski, Cain Velasquez, Alistair Overeem, and current ranked heavyweight Curtis Blaydes twice. He won the UFC Heavyweight Championship in March of 2021, defeating Stipe Miocic for his second shot at the UFC title. He defended it once against Cyril Gane in January of 2022 with 2 torn-up knees and out-wrestled him on his way to a decision win. It was a rather good heavyweight fight, and then shit hit the fan. Negotiations turned sour with Ngannou. Francis wanted freedom to fight in boxing, while the UFC did not, and a bunch of other things as well. Dana just ended up having enough, and the combinations of backstage drama, pettiness, and overall just a messy situation saw the unraveling of the UFC's heavyweight champion leaving the promotion without ever losing his title. After leaving the UFC as the champion, Francis Ngannou went on in boxing and fought Tyson Fury in a fight where a lot of people gave it to Francis Ngannou in a decision win, but it was ultimately won by Tyson Fury. In a shocking good performance by Ngannou, then he fought Anthony Joshua, and it was a shocking performance as well. The speed of Anthony Joshua was way too much, knocking out Francis Ngannou in round 2, suffering his first loss by knockout in his entire combat sports career. Then, in his return to MMA with the PFL in October of 2024, he faced PFL champ Renan Ferreira, and he knocked him out in round 1 by using devastating...
Ground and pounding, you know what it is.
This is a good fight in my mind, and Ngannou needs to fight more in MMA, but this isn't the level of competition I believe he should be fighting. This is a mismatch in my mind, and Ngannou might have a slow time just because he hasn't fought a whole lot in MMA since leaving the UFC. He might have a tough time getting going, but I see the mismatch here. The importance of this fight is somewhat there because of Ngannou, but it isn't really high. And the entertainment and skill level will be there, so I'm going to give this fight a grade of a B. It's going to be slightly lower than Diaz versus Peiera because of the competitiveness I'm expecting it to be. And I feel like this is a good fight, and I'm going to pick Francis Ngannou to win by second round TKO. Now coming up, the main event at 145 pounds, we have former UFC champion Ronda Rousey. She is 12-2 with 3 KOs and 9 submission wins. She is 39 years old, come by way of Riverside County, California. She is making an MMA return after 9 years and 5 months away. And she'll be facing one of the true pioneers of women's MMA, Gina Carano. She is 7-1 with 3 knockouts, 1 submission, and 3 decision wins. She is 44 years old, come by way of Albuquerque, New Mexico, making her combat sporting return after a long 16 years and 10 months. Ronda Rousey was the first superstar women's MMA fighter who changed the sport forever. And a former judoka gold medalist and Strikeforce MMA champion, she went to the UFC as the first ever female fighter signed to the promotion, and was the first ever champion, as well as she was given a belt upon her arrival in the UFC from the Strikeforce merger. She won 6 fights in a row when she got into the UFC, all wins by finishes. 3 of those lasted under a minute, and 1 of those was a minute and 6 seconds. Then the infamous downfall that hit harder than almost anyone in the sport of MMA. She lost in a massive upset in front of the biggest live audience in UFC history to combat sports legend Holly Holm in second round by a devastating head kick knockout. Rousey was a minus 1,400 favorite going into that fight, and she had a mental breakdown, refusing to do media. She took the loss to heart And then in her return, she got a fight against the best women's MMA fighter of all time, Amanda Nunes, and Nunes won by knockout in under a minute. She went to WWE and hasn't fought in combat sports since the Nunes loss in December of 2016. And Corano was important to women's MMA before Ronda Rousey even got started, being a part of the first ever televised women's MMA fight, and her father as well, former NFL quarterback and former Nevada State Athletic Commissioner, got women's MMA legal in Nevada when he was a commissioner, making women's MMA more popular and more accessible to watch for fans. Corano fought in Elite Extreme Combat, Strikeforce, and even a fight in K1. Her only loss was the women's MMA icon Cris Cyborg by TKO in the final seconds of round 1. After that loss in August of 2009, when I was 5 years old, Corano went on to star in many films and a successful acting career in films such as Ring Girls, American Gladiators, Fast and Furious 6, and other films as well. This fight is over 10 years in the making, and Ronda has called her out since her Strikeforce days. And the UFC has actually tried to make this fight happen in the UFC as recently as 2025, before negotiations fell out. It has somewhat importance in the fact that this is such a historical fight for women's MMA, but the fight itself is meh. Let's be honest here, these are just two 40-year-old women throwing it down in the middle of a cage. Skill level wise, these women would not be top 25 in women's bantamweight, which is the shallowest division in the UFC right now. But it has some intrigue here. So this fight, in my mind, it's going to get a grade of a C+. If these two didn't have name value and history behind them, this would be a prelim fight on an Apex card. And Rousey is annoying, and she honestly might be as annoying as Juliana Pena. My pick in this fight, though, will be Ronda Rousey to win this fight by third round submission, because I do think that she is the better overall MMA fighter and closer to the prime of her career. But this fight is meh, and honestly, for it being the main event, I have like 5 or 6 fights graded higher than it. These are my overall grades for every single fight on the card, and I don't think any fight on this card is truly an A-tier grade. Highlighted in green, I have fights that are good matchmaking and overall good fights that I wouldn't be upset if I saw on a UFC card someday. And the yellow fights are fights that I believe are good, but they just messed up the matchmaking. Francis Ngannou should have fought someone else. Mokeav should have fought someone else. And honestly, Rebellis Despaigne and Dos Santos could have been highlighted in red as well, which is, in my mind, kind of a useless fight. These are fights we could have gone forever without seeing, and it wouldn't have been a disappointment. I don't think Rousey versus Corano is a fight that we had to see, especially since they're both in their 40s now. But overall, I think this is a decent overall card. I would grade this almost similarly to a nice level, like a good UFC fight night. This is nowhere near the level of the White House card. This is nowhere near the level of UFC 328 in Newark, New Jersey. This card is honestly okay, and for a promotion that is trying to challenge the UFC, I think that this is a good start. You need to get some champions in your promotion. You need to get some form of ranking system, because if you want to have multiple events, you're going to need to have rivalries, you're going to need to have rankings, you're going to need to have multiple champions to main event those cards. So we'll see how they decide to approach this in terms of a long-term MMA promotion. Maybe they can make a promotion out of this, but as of right now, I'll be honest, I can see this going like almost every other MMA promotion outside of the UFC. They're going to put on some fun cards, but I think they're going to collapse after about 5 years. But we'll see how good this card goes. I think it's a decent overall card itself, and I'll definitely be watching it. Thank you all for making it to the end of the video. This isn't my normal type of video. I do predictions, but I only do UFC cards. This is kind of an outlier video for me prediction-wise. I figured why not, since Francis Ngannou, Muhammad Mokeav, and other talented fighters are on it, I might as well make a video on it. I hope you all enjoyed it. Make sure to like, comment, and share to one of your buddies, and I hope you all have an amazing day.